late November and get a show together, just showcasing what they've been learning on Zoom with all their other teachers. So, yeah.
What was the backstage numbers? I know because we're dealing with Canberra Theatre with YDF as well. We've been working on very strict parameters around that from the very beginning. Are you getting any sense there's a difference between the numbers that were prior to, because they still had restrictions, before we went into lockdown? Is it even going to be more restricted, do you think, Kim?
Simone, you might want to answer that one.
They haven't given any clear directive yet. The only thing I've heard of is the 150 capacity for an unticketed space, but that is not their technical back of house space. So with the gala in May, the backstage area that we were allowed to have was for 186 people. And that included all staff. They don't include the stage alone as a usable space, so that actually doesn't have a capacity.
Yeah.
Because that's considered a performance space that they don't consider that having to have. And that's not just the Canberra Theatre, that's an ACT Health ruling. But that might change this time. So from what I know that they're working on a COVID plan, because there's supposed to be a show at the Canberra Theatre Centre within basically the day that restrictions ease on the 29th. So we're waiting to watch this space moment.
That's an interesting point about the stage space, and Francis, because you were saying that you were sort of changing the way that you were doing it because of the space. Is that backstage or because, or is the stage a bit of a grey zone? Like, what have you heard?
It's a big grey zone.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anyone knows any more about what the government has saying in terms of dance, because obviously, when you dance, it's very difficult to stay 1 to 2 square meters at all times, And if, we've got dancers that do partner work or anything like that. All these sort of things that, coming on and off stage, and, because kids have to line up on the side of stage, how, if they're all spaced out evenly, they'll be outdoors if they're indoor venues. So there's a lot of things. I don't know if anyone knows, had an experience in terms of dealing with that. And what solutions they've come up with. I'd love to hear, because that's something I know that studios are faced with, including us.
I know with the gala last year, because we did have more than 186 performers, we had those that were in the second half of the show were sat in the level 3 area balcony of the Playhouse, and then we did this logistical moving of students around, didn't we, Simone? So again, it's what's this space look like next month? It's just moving all the time. So at some stage, I think we just have to come up with, or once Canberra Theatre get back to us, come up with what we're going to do and stick with it, regardless of whether it changes shape again.
We've just had Kerry Murphy's just popped in the chat. So CTC is still negotiating with ACT Health about the backstage limits. So,
and I think it's probably also important to note that it's very similar to the education sector in terms of children under 12 years. I think that needs to be considered as well. I mean, in our local schools, as long as there's good ventilation to the space, that backstage space, however that looks. I think that's probably something that could be considered as well for those students who are under 12 years. That, maybe that there are, it is a little bit more lenient in terms of space and square meters.
Yeah, that's true. Renee, would you like to talk about what I'll bring you in now. What sort of solutions? Tell us about your end of year show and what you're dealing with.
Yeah, so obviously with everybody being in the same scenario, there is that level of uncertainty. Juanita and I have very much moved forward with an option A and an option B. A couple of main things that we have changed is our venue. We're not using our original concert venue, so we've moved to a different location that does have a bigger stage and does have separate changing spaces. It is a school. but it does have many rooms. So in terms of being able to sort of measure out that square meterage and spreading students out, there is more allowances and there's more space, individual spaces for that to take place. We do have a plan A, which is a live show with a 75% audience capacity, but what very similarly to Kim, we usually do a full-scale production with 2 acts, but we have chosen to flip it this year and we're actually doing a showcase because there is that level of uncertainty. We don't feel that at this point we can commit to a full-scale production, not to the level of execution that we're used to. So we feel that a showcase is probably more beneficial for our studio at this point. And the other thing that we usually do is we usually have many shows over a whole weekend, so students get the opportunity to perform their concert pieces multiple times. We have opted for, in line with the audience capacity, we've opted to split our school into a junior and a senior show just to allow for more parents being able to see their children, but being able to sort of spread them out over the space, I guess. But we don't know how that's going to look either at the moment because we have booked out the whole weekend at the venue. So it may mean that each junior group gets 2 opportunities, or they do 2 shows, and then the senior group gets 2 shows as well. Because we do think it's an awful lot of work to just perform at once.
And what venue are you using?
Our old venue or our new venue, sorry?
Well, yeah, so which venue are you performing in for the show?
So we've hired Corwell High School Theatre.
Corwell High School Theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why.
The Tim Murray Theatre, but yeah.
Right. And it's sorry, because your sound's just a little bit muffled, so I'm just leaning in to and we've got the captions on too, so I'm sort of picking up that.
Do you want me to change my microphone?
Yeah, maybe.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so okay, so you're
Can I hear you though? I can't hear you. Here we go. Here I go. Is that better?
yeah,
Way better.
My apologies. Sorry. I do apologise. All these Zoom settings.
So I just asked a few questions that I might have.
Of course. Yeah, go on. Sorry. What questions do you need?
I probably should have jumped in earlier, but yeah. So so you're at Cornwall High. So you were mentioning earlier too that the schools, and that's what we're juggling with, the school directives. And so you're in a school venue, and at one point we were sort of even looking at Arundel Theatre, but we thought there might be some. But apparently the theatre isn't subject to the same restrictions that the school as a venue is, per se. So the theatre, I think, the theatres are still seen as separate.
Absolutely. So we actually hired Corwell last year as well. We recorded last year. We didn't do a live show either. And we used that space last year, and they're incredibly supportive in the theatre. It's kind of, it gives you that level of autonomy. They don't bother you, but they provide you with enough information and enough. They've got a handbook that they give you and they go through everything, but other than that, it's all over to you. So you provide them with your COVID safe plan and they okay it, and then you move ahead with your booking. So it's great. You've got no one there to bother you. You bring in your own tech people if that's what you want to do, your own equipment. Yeah, it's probably the easiest hire that we've ever had, to be honest. Yeah.
And is anyone filming as so because last year I went to a few end of year concerts and but they were at the Limelight, so they were filmed, and we watched them as a stream, which was pretty cool to kind of see an end of year studio performance eating popcorn in a cinema.
Yeah. Well, that's our plan B, and we think it's important to have that plan because we still don't know what's going to happen. Fills the both of us with dread, but that's why for us we did decide to have the plan A and plan B. Hence the venue too, at the location for us. You know, we've already filmed in that location. We know it works. We know that we can house all of our students in separate areas. We know that we can stick to a very clear schedule for filming if need be. And yeah, we're just sort of sitting and waiting, like everybody, twiddling our thumbs, hoping that we can all have some sort of live performance. But it's interesting because, sorry, I didn't catch your name, Passion and Purpose. I apologise.
KG. Oh, it's CAG or KG, yeah, whatever.
KG, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
We actually, Juanita and I did our filming last year at Cornwall High School, but then we did a community fete too. So as part of that community fete, we did a barbecue. We invited our community who may run small businesses or whatever. Each of them had a table, so they sold their goods there. We had a coffee van. We had timed disco, so we had 3 discos throughout the day, and they had to book in for whichever time that they were going to attend, and they had an hour disco that was led by our senior students, and it was more of a community fete element, and the kids got that as part of their concert or their filming, because like Kag said, you know, the knock to their mental health and the knock to our community, our community is massive. It's massive, and everyone needs something to look forward to.
Yeah,
so
and just like the last thing I was going to say is like careers too. Like I've got one dancer who she was planning to go to Sydney to join like a pretty amazing, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Tiana, but she runs a crew called Cross Colors, and one of our dancers was meant to be going over there and training and doing all that, and they haven't been able to train I think since June, like in Sydney. So it's just like, you know, the young dancers who normally probably go to Brent Street or go, you know, to Sydney or Perth, their careers have now been set back. Some of them have quit dance because they're like, oh, let me just go into, you know, like some generic university degree that I want, because the arts has just been totally, you know, set back, which is sad, because as a teacher, you know, my that's your pride. Like when you see one of your students go off and do great things, that's what you want, you know. So yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, we had to put I have a letter of exemption in for YDF, and you know, the first thing, the hurdle seems to have sort of, they've gone, well, no. And I've gone, well, yes, because it's actually, and they go, well, because it's not essential. And it's like, well, actually, we've got years 11 and 12s in this, for whom live performance is part of their curriculum assessment. So I've really had to, and that sort of surprised them a little bit. So they're going back to see whether our 11s and 12s can actually perform in YDF. But again, this idea that it isn't essential, but also not really any understanding that there actually might be people who are training to go into performing arts as a professional pathway. Oh yes, you know, that's this thing that you do on the side as a as a bit of fun. So really kind of getting that message across has been important with the advocacy that we've been doing, but also the mental wealth and wellbeing aspect of dance. That's been a big one that I've been trying to communicate very directly to government. It's great now, you can get peer-reviewed papers through PubMed easily, so I just, you know, stick those great ones that are coming through now, all about how dance, you know, in terms of metrics, in terms of wellbeing, you know, punches well above its weight, you know, in regards to any other fitness form, because
that's awesome.
Cognitive processing, the high neuroprocessing that you get with creative, particularly improvised dance, but you know, any dance form just rates so highly when it comes to mental wealth.
Yes, it's certainly been a challenge for those students that do wish to, you know, follow a career in dance, because I mean, part of it is usually going in and auditioning somewhere, or, you know, the New Zealand School of Dance or a Whopper or somebody comes to Canberra, but they can't come. So then you've got to, you know, film your auditions, and then you can't film your auditions. So what do you do? Do you send? It's just, so it's having to sort of negotiate, basically. And I suppose that in a way it's made me realize that I think this has one of the outcomes that I've liked about this time is that I feel like I've become a little bit more upskilled, and had to think and think different ways, you know, about how to approach things in different ways, like all of you, and I'm sure we all feel that way.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a need to, and because I'll come back to some of the more practical logistics of the end of your shows, but do you think there are, I mean, it would be good for me to know as well if you've got pre-professional students who are looking for opportunities in Canberra as well too, and some thought to what those students could do here, you know, as they can't necessarily get and access other places in Australia or the world at the moment, and any feedback on that would be great.
I think something like a professional hub of information, I think would be good. Especially like, I mean, for me, I don't know much about like, and this is like totally on me because I haven't really, you know, educated myself on other styles of dance. But like, so when students ask me, I want to get into this, I don't really have the, I guess, information to pass on to be like, oh, you could go, like I know WAPA and I know like, you know, Brent Street and those kind of places, but I don't have a well kind of understanding of the career pathway of what they can do in, say, you know, ballet or contemporary or stuff like that. But it's like, I can be like, oh yeah, hip hop, I know where you need to go for that. Or, you know, but I think something like that where kids can have like like information on Canberra based programs, or if there's any programs that they can upskill themselves.
That's something that we touched on the other day, Cathy. Juanita, Cathy, Kim and myself caught up last week and just had a chat about that. And just through the Canberra Dance Collective, that's something that we're really keen on working with Ausdance ACT on, and that's providing more training opportunities in Canberra for Canberra dancers and Canberran educators as well, and just creating more accountability for teachers in our industry that is unregulated, and that's something that we're really passionate about. And also providing more opportunities here in Canberra for students. It's great that they travel, it's wonderful, and it's something that we foster and we encourage, you know, to broaden their dance education, to broaden their career opportunities. But we are a big enough city to provide those opportunities also. And there is an incredible amount of talent in students, in dance educators here in the ACT, in performing artists. And it's something that we've seen develop over the last few years, you know, seeing the Australian Dance Party, seeing, you know, Kim's doing some great stuff with high kicks, you know, all of these wonderful things that are happening. And it would just be great to see more happening in the ACT for Canberran dancers.
Well, yes, I don't know if you heard Tara Chain's statement about the arts, and there's no doubt I was very encouraged by the fact that she's really placing, and it seems the government are placing the arts in Canberra as sort of centrepiece to their to their move forward. So it's not sort of a back industry, but there's certainly, you know, let's see how that is sort of rolls out. But there are certainly some heartening things in terms of their resilience measures they're doing at the moment. So I don't know what everyone else feels about that, but I think that's a positive step for young people who may want to stay here to continue their practice, because you need the government to be on board, you know, that you need them to be sort of behind and get that this is an industry and it's a viable industry and it contributes to kind of city vibrancy in so many ways, dance in all its aspects. Dancers, were you going to say something?
That's so great. Yeah, that's so great what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. Is there, apart from the Canberra Dance Collective, is there any other things, and obviously Ausdance, is there any other things, is it just taking what Kag was saying, that we can provide, you know, pathways for the young people from high school all the way through to, you know, certification level?
I think the thing that we are going to consistently find very, very difficult, and we're going to come up against, is the fact that we are unregulated. I think that is the biggest issue. And I think that moving forward, something needs to happen. I mean, you have, and, you know, I am going to use Kim Harvey as an example. She's one of our longest standing studios in Canberra, and there's a reason for that. And I think that it's really important with people coming into our industry and opening studios. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Anyone can walk off the street and open up a dance studio. Yeah. And I'm sure, Kim, once again, I'm going to turn to you, and I think that that's probably really shocking. You know, well, that reminder, we all know how hard we work, and we all know what our background is. We know, you know, for every single person sitting here today, we all have upskilled in many ways. We're all qualified in whatever area we're qualified in. We can all show whatever it is on our CV, but I think that ultimately the scary realization is that anyone can open up a dance studio. And I just think that our industry deserves more than that. And I think it's wonderful that Cathy and Ausdance ACT are doing what they can to ensure that credibility is starting, it's starting to happen, which is awesome. But again, through Canberra Dance Collective, that is our goal as well. We want to keep this conversation open. We want to work with Ausdance ACT. We want to work with studio owners to sit here and go, okay, what is that next step forward? What are we going to do? What are we going to do to ensure that our industry does become regulated? What are we going to do to ensure that not any Joe Blogs off the street can open a studio?
And one of the things we're looking at the moment with Ausdance National is a teacher registration / endorsement, and this has been on the table for a long time because we're looking at a number of different states. Different states have sort of got different levels of registration. I think Queensland has just launched a sort of a registration model, but something like that could be accessible through Ausdance National, I think would be a great bit like the egg board tick of approval. That your school.
I think that's a great thing. Yeah, I mean, that all comes down to also, the safety and well-being of our young people as well. We've seen that in the last couple of years.
Absolutely, and that's
come out.
Certainly, Ausdance National is they start the word safe dance was actually pioneered by Ausdance National. So there are the modules around safe dance, and that would form part of the endorsement / registration process. So we're looking at that, but of course AN are under-resourced because they lost their funding, so it's a bit of a slow process. But the states who are sort of interested are doing what they can to continue that conversation with the subcommittee, because I think that's very much something that we've just heard from the sector, that it's very needed.
Yeah, I think that's super important. Like, even I'm finding, like, myself now, like, just doing a lot of cultural dancing and bringing that into my studio, and I'm seeing, like, other people just kind of like you said, like, especially now with the online space and Instagram, social media, people, this just 17, 16-year-old people popping up and doing just little dance things, which is great. I applaud them for that kind of I guess entrepreneurship. But my biggest fear is, like, what happens. You always think, what happens when something goes wrong? This person is looking after maybe 10 or 20 young people, and they have little or no experience, and they have never collaborated with people who have been in the industry for 10 and 20 years. So the fact that someone can just pop up a dance studio tomorrow is, it's actually just quite scary, because it also brings down the rest of the community.
It devalues all the hard work that we've all done over the years, and I think that's both personally and professionally, that's a huge knock. And I think it's important. Again, this conversation is really important because everyone, well, the majority do feel the same way, by the sounds of things. This is one conversation. We've had multiple conversations where these same issues continually get brought up. And I just think, as an industry, the more we speak about it, the more we stand up and shout from the rooftops, that, the more we can do, I guess.
And I think it's good too that the studio sector has some visibility now too. I think that COVID has sort of brought your business, to the fore in a way that I think no one would have expected it to have done. And I think certainly in South Australia, when I was the president there, and I was telling Juanita and Renee about this, that I sort of had to tell the Premier, well, what about the dance studio sector? And he looked at me like, dance studio. So the actual concept of a dance studio hadn't occurred to him until I had this conversation with him. So I think that's, I actually went through the pages and I counted, not yellow pages, whatever they are now online, the equivalent, to count how many dance studios there were in South Australia. And, so I think I got up to 150 and I lost count. So yes, I think that the time is right for a number of issues to come to the fore. Just out of it. Sorry, who was someone? Oh.
No, I was just going to say, we're all tax-paying businesses, so it's like, come on, man. Like, Like, we contribute a large, like, we're an actual, large part of the Canberra business sector. So there's no reason why we can't, come together and get some more recognition from
It's good to see the Department of Health and Rec actually putting dance in a separate section too, and I think there's been quite a bit of advocacy around making sure that dance, is, and I think when at the beginning of COVID, when dance wasn't on there at all, and all these other sort of, I think that's when we realised where our position was in the context. So there was a bit of work to be done there, but yes, there's chipping away. So I think there's some positive things that have come out of this, because it's all that sort of disruption has thrown previously, maybe
it's educating people, it's making people aware, it's making people knowledgeable about, and I'm going to say that's about our government, that sort of thing, but it's also back to educating our own dance students as well. I really think that's important, that we as teachers, we give them some certain information and say, now go out there. I'll give you an example. It's only fairly new, but it's the Brisbane Contemporary Dance Grand Prix, which was meant to go ahead again this year. I think it's been running now only for about 2-3 years. And it's set up by Louise Deloire and I can't remember who else. I apologise to that person. And it was all because they had gone to, I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's called the Prix Lausanne, and it's a huge classical competition that's run in Lausanne in Switzerland. And what it is students from all over the world get chosen, they go, and then they perform for company directors of international schools and company directors of companies, dance companies, and they are offered scholarships and things. And it's not just the prize winners, it's just it can be, competitor number 36, and somebody sees something in that person, and it's like this workshop day where they get to sit down and talk with the directors and things like that. So Louise decided that we needed something like this just for contemporary dance, which is fantastic. And they set it up in Queensland, and they now, it didn't go ahead because of course we were all in lockdown, because I had a few students that were going to be going to it, a week-long sort of learn choreography, speak with people in the industry, which is really important that they do that. So they took it all online, and they had these directors from Palooka Schule, from Rambert in London, New Zealand School of Dance, Sydney Dance Company, and they pretty much answered questions, put their hand up and said, email me, if you're looking to come and audition, or maybe you want to send me some information. This sort of thing is really good. And I think that our students here in the ACT could all benefit from that, more of that sort of thing. So, and again, that's educating ourselves, educating them, letting them know what's out there. I'm talking about all genres. So, yeah. It was great, because I got to watch it later. One of my students sent me the link, which is no longer available, but it was really, I know some of these people that were speaking to the students, but it was interesting to see, because they've moved forward with ways that they're dealing with, where their students go once they have graduated, all sorts of interesting,
Yeah, well, there's the opportunity through Zoom, isn't there, to bring in sort of international conversations that weren't possible. And the conference model, for example, is completely altered as a result too. So
exactly, yes.
That's really something to think about, because we had a program called Escalate that dealt specifically, I suppose, with pre-professional dancers moving into, and it was about giving them, I suppose, professional stagecraft skills. But I'm thinking it's actually more than that, isn't it? It's actually finding information is really important at the moment, and knowing where you can go, because I mean Europe sort of opened up effectively, so those possibilities are there now again. But it's all
great, actually. I got one of my teachers from that program, so that was good.
Right.
Escalate.
Yeah, was it in Canberra? You did that? Yeah. One of my teachers, she came because she I remember seeing that on her resume. Ish. She was a dancer, and then she started teaching for us for about a year, but now she's in university in Albury, I want to say, Wodonga.
Yeah.
kind of university there. Yeah, but
yeah, and I suppose that's something that we normally
Mhm.
run at the beginning of the year, and it's coming up. And I'm thinking, well, how can that be a platform too to assist your pre-professional students? You know, as well. That's going through my mind. So if there's any feedback about that, that would be great. And if it's indeed if it's more about creating information workshops and you know, these sort of environments, that maybe that's the way, rather than necessarily about stage, just about stagecraft, aesthetics, etc.
We-
I'm
and
gonna, have to jump out and leave and be really
yeah, me
rude.
too. Sorry.
It's not just half an hour, 2 minutes ago. The conversation's so good. You just want to keep staying listening. Cathy, I've got to say thank you so much for organising this. You do incredible work with Ausdance ACT. I hope this would be. I'm glad you invited me, and great to meet Kim. I've known Kim for many years. I've not seen you in person, so I was like the same. Like great to see you in the flesh, and as well as Renee there and others. I can't see because of my tiles, but thank you so much, KG as well.
Yeah, bro. I'll
See you,
catch
bro.
up with you soon.
We'll catch up soon. But thank you so much for inviting me. Take care, all, and all the best with your interview productions. Hope you guys go really well.
Thank you very much.
You too.
I don't really need to say more. Francis said it all. So God bless you guys, and I'll see you. I'll see you
Good to
around.
meet you.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
hi Simone too. Has been a while.
It's been
Was
a
it,
while.
it was Riverside, right? Last time I saw you guys. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, ages.
See, I love you and I leave you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for coming.
Cathy, there's also a lot of former Canberran dance students who do actually work in the professional world, and because of Zoom, I mean, I've had one or two of them coaching and taking classes on Zoom, and I know a few others have as well. I mean, there's always the opportunity to have them come on and speak and have a forum with them, you know, them with our you know, more senior students. So yeah, just a thought.
No, that's a fantastic thought. Thank you. Because I mean, my practice is was an independent artist, so I'm not a teacher. I have an adult ballet class I taught, you know, late in life, but I'm not a teacher per se. So I'm still in some ways understanding what the needs are from the dance studio sector, because it's a sector I haven't been in since I was in it a long time ago. So
Yeah.
Just on training.
Sorry.
Sorry, Cathy. Sorry to cut you off. Just on the training element, we touched on this in terms of hosting a convention with Ausdance, potentially looking at a 2022 sort of convention for teachers and students as well, maybe joining forces and seeing what we can create together. So that would be a great opportunity. But Canberra Dance Collective, we also have a stream of CDC called Connect, and that is an opportunity for teachers, studio directors and teachers across the ACT and surrounds. Kim Dykenhart, you've come to all of our events, which has been wonderful. And Oscar has come to an event of ours before as well. And Connect is designed to be an opportunity for studio owners to come together, to network, and for dance educators to train. So this year we had 3 guest speakers. One was Kylie Murray, physiotherapist. We had Jackie Scott, who Zoomed in again from Melbourne, and we also had Fiona Luca zooming in from Melbourne as well. So little opportunities as well, I think, in the ACT arrive. I mean, not everyone's going to be able to attend everything. We've all got busy studios and families and all the other responsibilities that come with what we do. But yeah, just bear that in mind. That's another thing for educators to attend and train.
Yes, and let us know too when if you're doing that again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Renee. Look, just to jump back too, because we're sort of coming to the end now a little bit. I was just looking at the chat, and just to bring it back to the conversation about interview things. So, what dates is everyone sort of looking at? Have people actually had to move their dates for their interview shows?
Well, we did, because only because we were given the opportunity to do so. I mean, traditionally, it's getting a little bit more difficult to get dates at the Canberra Theatre Playhouse because of, you know, bigger events coming into Canberra. which of course the Canberra Theatre wants to promote. But because nobody could really come into Canberra, I was given a broader range of dates to choose from. And so, because as I said before, we had not filmed our ballet examinations, and 3 days before, bang, we need to get back in the studio and do that for all our students, because they've been working so hard. So I asked if I could move my dates to a later date, and so we're December 9 to 11 at the moment, so which is traditionally a little bit later than we normally do.
Anyone else whose dates have had to shift around? No.
Mine have, Cathy.
I was going to say too, Kim, because our lovely new president of Ausdance is here too, because Kim, of course, with your school, tell us some of your curves and backflips you've had to do.
Oh, well, we do numerous end of year performances. We have our high kicks cabaret soiree, and then we have our tots and our primary tots show, primary show, and then our senior show. So we've had to do a big juggle with everything. Our cabaret soiree was supposed to be on last weekend, so that obviously got moved. But the girls are ready to go. Our whole show's been rehearsing via Zoom. So we're looking forward to having that. It will replace our end of year show booking that we had. So we had an Erindale Theatre booking for our major showcase, which will now be too early to be ready in time for our main studio kids. So we've put the cabaret one in there, and then we've gotten a new date and pushed our main studio dates back further. So yeah, we've just kind of kept shuffling and moving things back, and we've extended our term dates as well, because we had an 11-week term this year, so we're going to make the use of it.
Yes, I mean, the adaptability and resilience, I think, is just so, captured in all the experiences that you've been talking about, whether it's people moving everything outside and creating, almost an outdoor event. That's no mean thing to do suddenly. And, the pivots that everyone's sort of referring to, or, rescheduling dates, or using your studio as a performance space, or moving somewhere else and then moving within these other parameters within the space. It really is a test of our resilience, I think, isn't it? As sort of dance practitioners, I feel it's drawing on all those resources that you have to have, when you're actually performing. It's the ability to improvise, the ability to work in the moment, the ability to just grit your teeth and get on with it, and just to keep going. I think that's the other thing. I don't know anyone other than the dance sector who have this kind of almost battle-like resilience when it comes to, the show must go on, and it's going to go on, and it will keep going on in some form or other. We'll find some way, whether that's filmed. So it really is a testament, I think, to the sector. The other thing too, I think, just to finish, because we're coming up to the sort of the hour mark as well, is I do think, looking at the directives, I think there has been some, looking at last year and comparing them. Obviously, same time with COVID outbreak earlier, I wasn't aware of what the Canberra restrictions were, but certainly comparing them to the South Australian ones, the provisions for dance studios are much better than they were last year coming out of lockdown. I remember there were those very long gaps where you could only sort of have 10 people in the studio, and then we were getting phone calls from all the dance studios who we probably hadn't heard from for a long time, going, this is outrageous. Then partnered dance, do you remember you couldn't do anything with partners, and it was all based on the sort of the contact or the boxing, I can't remember, what is it, martial arts, I can't remember what it is, but partner dance was sort of restricted for a long time. So I do feel that there's been a much more responsiveness, and it's quite fast, now from the 29th, pretty much you can use, there's not that issue now about spaces. They're aware that there are different spaces that you can put people into. So it seems to be much better based on, the experience from last year, whereas the schools are the ones now, unfortunately, because they're the ones we're dealing with, who have all the restrictions around them.
I loved last year, we couldn't, in contemporary class, couldn't roll around on the floor. So Chloe, our contemporary teacher, loved it when we went to Zoom. She said, because they can roll around on their floor at home all they like. So
a specific directive.
Yeah. No rolling on, no floor work, no lying on the floor. So I don't know whether that one will come back in or not. Yeah.
I hope not. I mean, that's one of the things I found frustrating last year is that because it's a global response, the problem with global responses are that they kind of lack any kind of local nuance. And, you know, when you're dealing with World Health Organization directives, they just kind of, so the problem was that there were clusters breaking out in fairly unusual circumstances that were then being applied everywhere in the world who were trying to follow the directive. So because of that breakout in the Zumba class, do you remember that was the one that started it all? That's why dance kind of got under the spotlight, because there was a Zumba class in Korea and they were doing Zumba for 3 hours without a break, and there was a very early breakout of COVID, and that is why dance got hit very early from the health departments. It's like, oh, health is, you know, dance is a problem. But that one example, I mean, for a start, it wasn't peer reviewed when these sort of decisions were being made. It was a very kind of low level reporting. And I look, since then, I think there were sort of clusters in other areas. But I mean, there were maybe 4 examples worldwide that they were using to make a test case sort of example for dance. And and choirs too got hit badly as well, because there were a couple of outbreaks, you know, in Wyoming or something. And it's like, I don't know why suddenly, you know, what happened in Wyoming was sort of relevant to you know, to Canberra or to Adelaide or to somewhere else. It's almost like and so I felt that those sectors within their localities really had to fight to go, actually, we don't do Zumba for 3 hours, you know, in humid conditions. No, the sort of the conditions that they were looking at were completely sort of different to the circumstance and conditions here, and getting that message across has been a bit of a battle. But I think it's sort of being listened to by and large. If anyone's got any feedback about that, but that was my experience.
I didn't know about the Zumba, so that's interesting.
The Zumba, 3 hours in Korea, and that did it in for
Zumba, wow.
And then early papers out of the UK were saying, look, you can sort of, because we're just using this one example really and how people can get around the restrictions because of this one example. And that's when the issues about ventilation and masks came in. So some of the solutions were to make sure there was proper ventilation in studios and that people could wear masks too. So that was some of the solutions that came up initially in the UK.
Wow.
It was scary the way that these sort of blanket responses I felt were being.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, look, we've come up to I'm South Australia. So hour mark. So yes, as we know, I've got stuck on this. Fortunately, my son is here, so I got stuck on at the moment. So I've got stuck on the right side of the border with a few more freedoms than everybody else did. So working remotely. So I'm just like, I'm about to text me, you know, what are the travel restrictions going to be? So I just have to wait for those border restrictions to change, and I'll be back over. But we've all been working remotely, which has been full on. So look, thank you all so much for attending. It's been really lovely to kind of meet some of you in person as well too. And I haven't had a chance. I've heard these names, and I haven't because I met Eliza Kim, who I know is one of your students, and she was on our panel last week as well. So. And I know that she's been, and I saw the gala too. Lisa invited me at the end of last year to the amazing gala.
Right.
So I was able to see actually Eliza's choreography.
Yes.
And I was just blown away by it in that piece. I can still have the image.
She's got some great stuff up there. Mind you, she still does a killer ballet class too.
That was the thing too, because don't forget, I'm messaging all of this back to government, is how much the studio sector, you know, creates opportunities for professional dancers to actually continue practicing their choreographic and developing choreographic ideas, particularly when opportunities elsewhere might be thin on the ground, and how important it is that they reconnect, you know, with their old studio and with their old teachers, but they also bring back and share that knowledge, but also continue their practice within that environment as well too.
Exactly. Yeah, I do know that there's 1 or 2 dancers in the Australian Ballet Company who have actually gone, who are on the RAD teachers professional teaching course now, because you know they're looking towards the future, and they want to upskill, and they're in class but they can't perform, and so some of them have actually been doing some Zooming lessons with students, which is great as well. So there are, as I said before, there are some positive outcomes that have come out of this, and I think Zoom, for all its issues, is something that we should, or something like Zoom is something that we should use going forward.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, access is such a huge thing too. And
Absolutely. It's even been great just for, our staff once a week to get together and have a good chat. And sometimes it's not even just about, well, is it, Simone? Sometimes it's not just about what's been happening on Zoom. It's just being able to be people and yes, have a conversation. Really, really important. And then,
well, it's that need for that human connection, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also all your pets.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Lovely. All right. Well, look, thank you so much for coming into the Zoom today and being part of this. It's been recorded. I think I might have pressed the record. I had it paused and I think there might be a bit missing at the top. So yes, I think one of the things that actually tested, I think everyone with a dance background is a bit of a perfectionist, I have to say, and I think that I think this environment has allowed us to be to kind of deal with that sense that some things you just have to let go for the bigger.
Yeah.
Like your hair.
Yeah.
Like this.
I know. Are there any questions too from any of our people who've come in to listen to the conversation, or anything that anyone else would like to add as well? No. Lovely. All right. There's Cherry. I haven't met Cherry before. I keep hearing about Cherry and seeing your name everywhere. So hi.
Carrie, yes. Hi.
You Carrie? Sorry, you Carrie.
Carrie.
Oh, you're Carrie. Sorry. I saw the C. I keep thinking like Chiquetti. Oh.
Yeah, I've had Carrie, I've had Sherry, I've had Cherry, I've had all sorts of variations, but yeah.
Apologies, Carrie. Yes, but I've seen your name in so many places because Carrie's worked for a long time with YDF with the Youth Dance Festival with us too.
It's good
Hi,
to
Gary.
put names to faces. Hi, Emma. Hi, Deborah. Hi, Kim.
Thanks for joining
Hi.
us. It was great you were there to provide some insight into the Canberra Theatre.
Yeah, so I actually made an inquiry because I've got the work, I'm working from home. I've got work laptop open, and Roddy has come back saying that so far as she's aware, 1 per 4 square metre backstage is the numbers that they're looking at the moment.
And I put the square meters in our chat too. So if you divide those by 4, if that's what they're settling
So
with,
is that the back of house?
That's
Thanks,
just
Kim.
back of house. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for the backstage area.
So someone maths clever, quickly do that sum.
Yeah.
They include the back of house as the whole back of house. So behind the stage, the dressing rooms, the hallways, everything is included as one thing. So you can't have individual dressing rooms included as one area. That's all inclusive. They also include your own staff as numbers in that, even though in ACT Health we're included as what's the word?
So in your own venue, you would be staff and not included in participant numbers. In Canberra Theatre, you are participants.
Why are we not
because
guardians?
only Canberra Theatre staff are not included in participant numbers.
No, I get that. But why are we not guardians?
True.
Yeah.
Because guardians are not included in capacity rules, and that each kid under the age of whatever can have one guardian.
Yeah.
You could, I guess, because you're being paid to be there by your studio, potentially. Volunteers.
But we also have no volunteers. Yeah.
An argument could be made for volunteers to be included as guardians.
Yes.
And therefore not count towards the number. But
because I know with the whole, working with vulnerable people card, we have, some volunteers. We have quite a few actually who are working backstage. I suppose they are, because they're in the change rooms and backstage and out the front. So Simone did bring that up with me the other day. So it's something to look at.
Yeah. The thing I didn't jump in earlier because the conversation was going nicely, but the thing with the outdoor performances, family groups can still sit together and they don't have to obey the 4 metre rules. So they can all clump together, and you can have a clump of family here, and then 4 meters where you can have a clump of family over there. And whereas in a theatre, everyone's seated and you can't, bunch together your household or family groups. So that's why the rules are a little bit different outdoors, indoors.
And I mean, the rules are different all the time, because last year we actually used the Canberra College and had we normally have 2 or 3 big shows in the Playhouse, but we had, how many do we have, Simone? Six smaller shows and a junior and senior, and we were allowed to clump families together, and then a space.
Well, that's what we're doing. So we're giving a maximum amount of ticket numbers, but there's no option for seat preference or allocation. We're doing a first booked, and we're doing it in a timed order, and then we are going to put the family name on the 4 seats that they're allocated, and then spread them out according to the square meterage. So then we have full control of that. And
when people are in seats in an audience, that takes up more space than if you're on a picnic rug out in a park. But the mask,
I was wondering about the
mandate is going to be interesting, because you can't have your performers wearing a mask to the stage, taking it off. Where are they going to put it? Who's going to look after it? Unless it's all disposable masks, and you just pick up a brand new one when you come off the stage.
But that's exactly what we were told to do last year when we went back into our studios. The students had to wear a mask in the common areas, and when they got into the classroom, take your mask off. So of course we we basically just said, well, that's ridiculous, but we did what we were told, and you just had I just said to them, stand there ready near the doorway. We had changed our way of all of our lockers and things, where lockers were or pigeonholes were down the other end of the hallway, but we made sure that whoever was taking class had pigeonholes right outside the studio door. Pretty much wait there with your mask on, door opens, take it off, put it in your bag and go into the studio. I mean, it's crazy.
But that's in a dance class capacity, Kim, not in a performance capacity.
True, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at the footballers, they run out and they all dump them in a bin.
Yeah. So
it's great for performance.
If we were to enforce that mask rule backstage at the theatre, they would have to be disposable masks that they go into a bin as they're entering the stage, and they get a brand new one out of some container or something as they leave the stage.
So what if you're on the stage and then you're off the stage for 3 minutes and then you're back on the stage?
I think it would have to be at the end of your piece, at the end of your number, you would then get a mask when you're leaving the stage area.
But there would be dancers that come on and off within the one.
Yes, no, I understand that, but I'm if they're staying in the wings, I think they would be okay. It's if they were actually like leaving to go back into the corridors, they would have to have masks to go back out there.
Well, I guess it just becomes a bit like, your water bottle that you might have, as a performer backstage. Everyone just has to be responsible for putting their mask somewhere before they go on and then picking them up as they come off again. I guess it's just.
Oh, have you seen how unresponsible they are with their water bottles?
Yes, the lost property at the end of term.
And shoes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, unless they just continue to run on the spot, and that's considered vigorous exercise, and then they don't have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Or they could just keep jumping jacks on the spot consistently, and then
well done, Renee.
You've got to be careful with masks with older people too. I know 2 women, including my mother, who've fallen because they've had their masks on and they're trying to walk to the car and they can't see and they've tripped.
Vision down here.
Because it actually cuts off your peripheral, and if you're looking at the floor to see where you're going. And I would have thought there could be a bit of a hazard backstage too when it's very dark, because we're used to obviously fluoroing areas that are normally for normal vision, but if you've got a mask on, it's an extra kind of issue then, isn't it?
I think it might be worthwhile to argue for masks to be left in dressing rooms.
Yeah, so once you go through, for example, the Canberra Theatre into that stage space, backstage space, you leave your mask before you go in there.
Yeah. Or leave it in the dressing room. So you don't leave your dressing room until you're just about to go on stage, so that you're not waiting in corridors, you're not waiting beside in the wing of the for more than a minute. So you go straight from your dressing room to the stage, do your piece, go back to your dressing room. Masks are in the dressing rooms.
That sounds like a much better solution.
And interestingly, if you look at, Kerry, what's on in the theatre in the lead up, say, to Kim and Simone's concert, it's all pretty much like the first thing that's on is the Chopper, that horrendous Chopper comedian, but nothing that compares in terms of numbers, nothing with numbers until you get to the Wharf Review, or I wonder would that, Music at Midday, I can't imagine that'd go ahead.
The news that I've heard is that yes, they are still looking at going ahead with Music at Midday, and the Wharf Review is,
well, they've just
starting their rehearsals next week. We've received information.
Yeah, and they've just promoted the Wharf Review this morning on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, well, that will, I don't imagine the nursing homes will be coming to the Music at Midday.
No, and they might, there has been some discussion about doing the CTC at home recording thing again, maybe setting up cameras to record the Music at Midday and broadcasting that instead of having people coming into the theatre. Although they do have the capacity, they've been allowed to open with 75% capacity.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at for YDF. We sort of cut off the option of audience. It just seemed untenable. But filming the children, the problem we've got is that excursions currently aren't allowed. So we're working. That's why we're sort of begging for the 11s and 12s at the moment to be allowed to come to the theatre. And it's not like it's a day off. It's not like it's a day to the zoo or something. It's actually a. And so I'm trying to explain to them there's hours and hours, creating, 3 to 5 minutes piece, works of choreography. All of that work is going to be sort of lost if they don't get a chance to record it or perform it in some way. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's not like that the students are going to be free to wander around the city at any time. If they just come in and do their piece and go back to school.
Thanks for Kim's just crunched those numbers and put them in the chat. They're very low, aren't they?
Small numbers.
Very small numbers.
So that's the official backstage numbers, Kim, is it?
So this stage, the back of house meterage is what they've given me to work out all my numbers. Yeah, because we have a tentative booking there as well. But for us, I don't think we'll be able to go ahead with our booking there because of the numbers.
Don't forget, if you're using the Playhouse, don't forget that there's the green room courtyard, which is an outdoor space, but it's fenced.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
And on the theatre side, don't forget about the courtyard studio. It can be used.
Yes,
but
apparently
there's no longer an outdoor
But you do have to pay the cost for it as
and
well.
it's booked on our dates.
There's no outdoor space.
There's no outdoor space anymore of the courtyard studio.
No.
Yeah.
Well, there is a grassed area, but it's really difficult to contain it now.
Yes, 46. Well, we were going to get the schools in one at a time and film them, and they'd go off. That's our sort of COVID solution. So there's no crossover. So the numbers are easy to work with. It's just whether we'll get permission for the 11s and 12s to do that. So.
And I remember last year some of the schools did junior shows. All of them left, and then the seniors came in and did their show separately, just to cope with the numbers backstage.
Yes. Well, okay. Well, lots of solutions and problems and number. We did sort of think whether we could run YDF outside. There comes a point where you just sort of get slightly exhausted from all the.
Yes.
We do have dance films as well, which is it.
I wonder where KG is running his outdoor performance. He didn't say, did he?
There is an outdoor stage in Tuggeranong. It has power, lighting, and power to it, and stuff like that. So
He operates out of high schools, so quite possibly he'd be looking at a high school oval, perhaps.
Yeah.
So where they're based.
Yeah, they're more Belconnen side of town, aren't they?
Yeah.
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 There's also that stage in the camp by the lake, where the
Page 88.
Yeah.
Page 88, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really hard one.
Is it?
Don't Bradford have an amphitheatre?
I'm not sure.
An amphitheatre? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they do.
Well, one of the
I just saw Deborah's chat.
Right, that's good to know. One of the options, but Radford they've made their dance films already, so they're all sorted. But for the live performance pieces, just from our point of view too, yeah, one of the options will be they might just have to film the pieces in the school and send us the filmed. You know, that might be one way of salvaging some of that work. Because it's the excursion provision. Doesn't matter where they go. I think we have to get over this excursion issue. Anyway, all right. Well, look. Time to go. Thank you everybody for coming. It was wonderful, and we'll all be in contact. Please contact us if you've got any questions, and you know, for those people who, as we've said, we've already set up lines of communication about things. You know, we'll be in contact, and yeah, Kerry will sort of, it's all a bit on hold at the moment, so we'll see how we go.
All good.
All right, thanks everyone.